Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Matiazzo, and today's guest is a marriage celebrant. She was on season 5 of MAFS. She's also a marketing coordinator for a disability support service, and she is queen of the side hustle. Welcome to the podcast, Gabrielle Bartlett.
That is such a beautiful intro. Love it.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I feel incredibly honoured. And now you just set the bar high with such a seamless intro. How do I measure up to that, Carla?
You're too kind. So let's get stuck in straight away. First crushes. Did you have any? Can you remember the stories around those crushes?
Oh, the first crush. Well, I think the first crush I had, so I grew up on stage thinking I was going to be heading to Hollywood at some point, and as soon as I was out of school it was going to be imminent that Hollywood would be calling me or the Sydney Theatre Company, one or the other. That was my life. And so there was a boy at the Australian Theatre for Young People, which still exists today. Mm-hmm. And I'll be so embarrassed if anyone happens to be listening who was in my classes. But his name was Jasper, and I remember going into my drama class one day and he was there, and he came in late because he had a broken leg and he came in plaster. And I don't know whether it was just the hobbling of the crutches or not, but I absolutely loved him, and nobody knew about it. In fact, I think this is the very first time I'm speaking this into the universe, I think. Carla, what have you done? I think it was that. I don't know. It was the sweet face and the crutches, I think. I'm not sure, but I just thought he was the bee's knees, Carla. I really did. Aww. And he never knew.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think we keep crushes so secret? Like, is it the fact that we're okay with them being unattainable and just a faraway thought? What do you think it is?
I think probably, well, for me, I just thought that, the other girls there would have caught his eye, far quicker than little old me, and so, the fear of rejection starts really early, I think. It prevents you from wanting to put your hat in the ring, or get into the arena. And it's probably really, sage advice that we were giving ourselves at that tender age, because once you do put yourself in the arena, it's pretty bloody grisly sometimes. So the arena of love.
Isn't it just? Yeah. So how old were you then when you had that crush on them?
Gosh. Well, probably like year 7, or, I was an early romantic. Like, I didn't really know about the birds and the bees till a lot later. So wasn't really an early kind of a developer in that way, but was definitely a hopeless romantic. And I think it's, the Disney stories. Us little girls were fed these fairy tale stories, and I think that they have a lot to answer for.
Oh, they so do. They really do. They really, And like looking back now, they really shape the whole narrative that women need saving and we can't save ourselves.
Or just, the waiting for the Prince Charming, which indicates that, the man is the saviour and the be-all and end-all. And, oh, gosh, I tell you what, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and, the advice that I'm trying to raise her with about self-sufficiency and independence and that, the finish line, the man is not the finish line at all. That's the advice that I'm trying to, correct from myself, is very different with her. But society's got a long way to catch up to, though. So, we're still very much living our forward steps of evolvement have been very slow, and there's a long way to go, as we know.
I think culturally, even coming from a European background, like Italian, French and Croatian, there is a lot of focus on your value only when you are attached to someone, especially the older you get as a female. Like it doesn't exist for men necessarily from my experience through especially Italian culture, but definitely one of my nonnas in particular was very articulate and forceful with her opinions on, the value of a woman is only represented in a union with a man.
Oh gosh, wow. Yeah, we feel that, don't we? And it reminds me of the sort of connecting kind of, belief system, which is the beauty currency. And that's something that is hits raw nerves for me, and I see that belief system. Gosh, it's one set of beliefs that and that whole beauty currency theme is something that I've been quite sensitive to pick up over my life. And the example, when I've spoken about it before, like the example that I keep thinking of is in terms of that weight of the beauty myth or the beauty currency. I remember years ago, I can't remember the little girl's name. She went missing and was murdered, and she was a child. She used to do beauty pageants.
I know
I can't remember her name. Yeah,
I know who you're talking about. The name's not coming. Yeah,
but I just can't. I remember all the way back then, and whenever that story comes up, I have noticed so many people talking about it with the comment attached being, it was so tragic because she was so beautiful. And it seems like, when you hear these terrible, sad stories, but it seems like in society, if the child or the girl is particularly, what society would call as beautiful, it seems like it's an extra tragedy. And I hear that. I'm sensitive to those messages, not only because I have a teenage daughter, but having some, diversity in my life, having lost my hair when I was a kid and having lost it all through my teenage years. That whole beauty currency, and also with it being the vehicle to get the man is something that I think is really disturbing and sadly still very much with us to this day. We haven't moved far off the 1950s at all. We're maybe one or two steps ahead, but gosh, we've got a long way to go.
How do you have conversations with your teenage daughter around the beauty currency stuff? Because that's something that really interests me in what you've said there in regards to like self-value, having an understanding that you touched on before, that the man is not the end goal. Well, what kind of conversations, how do you approach this with a teenager?
Well, I guess the thing that comes to mind most recently that I've done is when there've been conversations when, when my daughter's talked about, kids at school and things like that. I've tried to just dissect what it is, or, what has given a particular child or a particular girl this extra bit of confidence, or where does that come from? What other qualities does she have about her? How far will the qualities take her when someone's commenting on her beauty? And that's not to say that it's a bad thing. I think it's a lovely thing to appreciate someone who you think is beautiful. There's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just when it's this heavy weight that is heavier than perhaps the shape of somebody's heart, or a passion that they have that you can see shining out of their eyes, those kinds of things that often get missed. So I try to see if we can dissect and bring some of that stuff to the front when I am talking with her and her friends as well.
That's so
it's very
valuable.
interesting. Yeah.
That's so valuable.
Yeah.
That's really important. That allows your daughter, and hopefully, everybody that's listening to this can ponder on this as well. It helps us look at the whole person instead of just the external package that's being presented to everybody. Because yes, it's important to be, romantically speaking, it's important to be attracted to who you're with. Like, there's an important in regards to that factor, but it is also extremely important to be connected and value and are attracted to the inner dwellings of that person as well.
Oh, absolutely. Because, at some point, you might be, and we've seen it many times, what society would call spectacularly beautiful women who go through the same amount of heartbreak and rejection as anybody else does. It's that whole saying of, congratulations on your beautiful face. But beyond that, the man, if he's going to, if that's all you got going, then things might be quite sort of short-lived. And I think not just because of the, tenure of your relationship with a man, but also for yourself, when you have ups and downs, and at some point, not everybody stays 25, has 25-year-old skin, do they? And gosh, I'm dealing with that now, being 48, thinking, whew.
Woman, you don't remotely look 48 at all. Like, I would have said,
you're hired, Carla. You're hired.
I would have said 30s, easy 30s.
Oh. Wow, I think that this dim lighting is really working.
Now, shut up. It's not the dim lighting. You're stunning.
Yeah. Thanks, my darling. Thank you. And I appreciate that. But, and especially with what I went through, having a physical difference for all of my life. I don't have any hair now, and that is interesting for me in terms of dating, in terms of my own self-esteem. And I had to tackle that when I was a teenager. I tell you what, it was like a massive baptism of fire in terms of find your own substance, love, because, if you have a physical difference that you deal with, especially as a teenager, it's quite life-changing. It's quite life-changing. What I have being alopecia, it's not life-threatening, but it is certainly life-changing for people, and it does challenge you in terms of your own set of beliefs. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it definitely would. So speaking of alopecia, I remember watching your season of MAFS. And I remember being absolutely disgusted with the guy that you were paired up with his response. Like,
yeah, it was a shame that it was and it was actually I've never had in terms of dating and alopecia and the whole inevitable conversation that at some point has to happen. While it's something that the way I deal with my alopecia means that there's nothing required of the man I'm in a relationship with to have to deal with. He doesn't see me in any other way than, you know, how you see me now. But certainly, you know, it's a part. It doesn't define me, but it is certainly part of my journey. And it goes without saying that inevitably at some point a conversation around that would happen. But anytime I have been in a relationship with someone and that conversation has happened, it's been an incredibly, it's been a non-event really. But so on air and being filmed, meeting someone for the first time and having that inevitable conversation, it was actually the first time I'd actually had someone have such a strange, not strange, but such a negative reaction or see it as something that was a bit, oh, let's not talk about that again. Oh, it's your thing. That's your stuff. You deal with that. It was an interesting, candid reaction from him, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was quite polarizing to see somebody behave like that. And I remember how dignified you were in your response. And it is such a shame that I'm sure you would have felt somewhat of pressure to act in a certain way because you were on television. Because I know I remember thinking if I was in your shoes and that's how a bloke responded to me, oh, mate, I would not have been as gracious as you were.
Well, I suppose they had me under the guise of, you know, you're matched with someone who you ordinarily may not have gone for, which was certainly the truth. So you need to, you know, you're dating in a different way right now. So you need to, do things differently. And I sort of said to the person I was matched with and to the camera many times, so this isn't the person I'd even last a glass of wine on a date with. I wouldn't have even lasted the whole glass of wine. But I wasn't on a regular date. I was doing this experiment, which I was given a lot of grooming and reassurance, and I use the word grooming specifically, that I was actually going to be matched with someone compatible to me, professionally matched to someone compatible to me. And if you've been single for any length of time and you've been wanting to meet someone special and you're picky and patient about it, if someone offered you an opportunity to be professionally matched to someone compatible to you, then that would be an interesting and quite a worthwhile offer to think about. And that's exactly how the casting process for Married at First Sight went with me, is that, in that 6 months prior to being given the opportunity, I was asked so very many questions about the type of qualities that I was looking for in a man and the type of person, type of lifestyle, all of those things. And they were constantly asking me about, how authentic will I be, about giving into the process and going with it. Well, they were asking me so much about how authentic I was that I didn't get the chance to actually stop and look at them and say, how authentic are you about matching me with someone compatible to me? And that is a question that I do hope that people who are in the casting process for future seasons, I do hope they stop to actually ask that question and tell me and show me how authentic you are about matching me. I wish I'd asked that question a little bit more during that time. But back to, I guess, the dating, I was, convinced that this was a very, very, sincere and real reason why I had been matched to this person. So I was to give it a go and see where those compatible qualities were going to reveal themselves. So I was very easy in terms of the alopecia and revealing that. I was very disappointing to producers, I think, because I think they were hoping that I was sort of, nervously building up the courage to, have this big moment. So they would occasionally ask me and say, how are you feeling about letting NASA know that you've got alopecia? And I'd say, oh, I'm fine. Did you want me to tell him now? I'm fine. And they go, oh, no. Let's just wait for the right time. Like, oh, well, just let me know, because I'm happy to. It's not a big deal. I'm quite transparent about it. So that was quite disappointing for them. I think they were hoping for a big, nervous sort of build-up. I'm quite happy to be transparent about it. So
I think so much of what you've just said there is so very important for people to consider if they are considering applying for stuff like that, because you begin to realise, and just by what you've described, they set you up to be vulnerable in those situations, because when you are hopeful, when you are like, and I'd been single for like 6-7 years, and during that time I considered doing those shows, and then as I saw the seasons going on, I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't apply for that, because it looks like it can be a shitstorm.
It's correct observation, Carla.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how you're describing them, setting you up to be vulnerable and open to the experience. And when any casting situation happens, reality TV in particular, people are often caught up in the whirlwind of that situation. So it is hard to step back, take a moment and go, actually, am I asking the questions I need to fulfill what's important for me in this experience? And hearing how they were stopping you from sharing the alopecia stuff and wanting to manipulate you to produce what they want to produce for the show, and to get results that they want in that particular storyline. Fuck me, man. That must have been really hard and really upsetting to reflect on, I imagine.
Very much so. And look, I was going to say also, keep in mind, I like to consider myself not a silly lady. You know,
No, you're not.
I've had some life experience. I wasn't sitting, you know, at home whimsically thinking, you know, this will be amazing. I'd watched a couple of the other seasons, and admittedly before season 5, there was elements of what I think it originally started off, which was a documentary style, let's match people and see how that goes. So yes, there was that. But considering myself, you know, not particularly silly, but also I've got a history of an acting background, so I'm very used to a casting process. So unlike someone who may have just been caught up in, oh my goodness, I understood a casting or a callback is a callback. It's not an offer. So maybe it was part of the appeal that I was able to deal with those levels of casting, I guess, you know, in my stride, maybe more than others. So there's those elements as well. But I think I remember being on the honeymoon of the show, and then beyond that, in a fair bit of grief, that I wasn't going to be meeting someone that I could possibly invest some time and some parts of my heart to. This wasn't going to be that. This was going to be, you're in a bear pit and they're watching how you fight. Yes. So you now have to navigate in a very graceful, dignified, protective way. You're going to navigate your way out of that bear pit. You're not meeting a guy that has been carefully picked for you. And so there was a fair bit of grief during that time, that I was in a very, very precarious situation. And while I had contact with my family and friends during the filming, and certainly at the beginning, but as time went on and the more obscure and strange kind of brainwashing that was sort of going on during filming became, it was almost like I remember the vision of, I felt like I was on a rowboat and I was watching my friends and family on the mainland, but the rowboat was going further and further out to sea, and the gap was too hard to sort of reach on over and have my family and friends identify with. So you became lonelier and lonelier, which is why you probably have noticed that a lot of people on each season, there's a real shared trauma that connects us all. And certainly with my season, you know, there's many people I was on that season with that I ordinarily would never have had crossed paths with or formed a friendship with. But we do have that friendship and that bond because we kind of ended up during filming not having anybody else to have support you, you know, or
and that's
to understand.
Kind of like an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it is almost victims of. Victims of circumstance. And, you know, we almost, you know, in some ways were, you know, the guys might be have, you know, snuck off for a beer together. That was their way of clutching onto each other going, oh, man, what is this? And no longer being able to reach out to family and friends who would understand. And the same with us girls. You know, we reached out to each other and just sort of clung on while, you know, clambering our way through it. So, I mean, it's amazing. I was 45 at the time, and I just remember feeling like a 7-year-old, being spoken to like a 7-year-old, and being obedient like a 7-year-old, feeling guilty if I'd done something naughty like a 7-year-old. Like it was really strange. Yeah. But all the while, I just knew I was in a very precarious situation, and I had been thrown in the bear pit, and the entertainment was going to be watching me get out of it. And that's what I really took on. I thought, right, if you want to fight or if you want to watch me get out of this gracefully, watch and I'll show you how it's fucking done. That's how I sort of had to reason with it. You know, you want me to stand on the table and yell, you want me to lose my shit, watch as I don't.
Yes.
So that was.
But it's a shame though that you had, like, really, that's a shame that because you had every right to respond in any way that you desired. Because he was a pig. Sorry. Like, from what I saw as a viewer, it was very hard to digest that behaviour and watch that behaviour, and that behaviour being entertainment for the masses. Like, that was, to me, that was really difficult. And I think your season was the last season I watched because I was like, nah, I can't be watching this stuff. It actually breaks my heart too much. There's too many things that trigger things for me. And just I've got a few friends, one in which I grew up with, and then some that I've created through the podcast and interviewing people like yourself, and just hearing the stories and the way in which it all unfolded, just it just makes me so angry and sad. And it shouldn't, that stuff shouldn't be happening, but that reality TV stuff is everywhere.
And I think our season was quite pivotal, with a lot of natural storylines that popped up that really worked for ratings. And from there, it's been the Jerry Springer show, and it's been Jerry Springer after Jerry Springer, and that's the two words I use to describe those. As you can imagine, when you've been on one of those shows, a lot of people ask you, "Are you watching the show?" All that sort of stuff. And season after season, I get it. You know, the ratings went through the roof. Why fix something that ain't broke? They're doing what they're it's like the sausage factory or the McDonald's, like cookie cutter, spit it out. People will watch, and there'll be ratings, there will be controversy, there will be this, that and the other, and there'll be march on. Next season, march on. But it was funny, a lot of people after the filming, you know, I was actually very sick after the filming, so I
that would have been through stress, man, I imagine.
Well, it was a bit of a perfect storm of a number of sort of big things that were going on for me health-wise. But, I was pretty unwell there for a while, which was a shame in a lot of ways, but mostly because one couple of little perks that I suppose you get from doing a show like that is there's some fun parties, and so I didn't get to go to a lot of the fun parties. When I did get better, I was like, woohoo, let me at it. But and I thought, why the hell not? I didn't get anything else out of it. And the biggest thing that a lot of people said is, life must be really fun. You know, is it fun being recognised in Woolies and all those sorts of things? But I was still grieving for the guy that I had given up looking for 6 months before I was cast. So then we do the filming, and then I was very sick afterwards. And so, it's the one thing that I went looking for, I didn't find. So anything else positive that sort of came out of it, really I sort of see as just a bit of a cheap thrill or a small little consolation prize. Yeah. So because I didn't get that thing that I was after.
Yeah, exactly. So how then has it shaped your experience dating-wise after the show? How has has it changed since that experience?
You know, it's funny. I didn't think it had. I mean, again, as I said, I've been, my health's been quite up and down, and it's really just starting to level out sort of now, actually, which is really, really great. But
Good.
I didn't think that it had much of a difference, and it wasn't actually until a dear friend of mine recently said, we were talking about, dates and men and all that, and my friend said to me, he said, you know what, ever since you came out of MAFS, you're like, before that, I would go through periods of time where I might see someone for a while or go on a couple of dates and have some funny stories. Mm-hmm. But he said, there's been such a marked difference in you in terms of your dating life since you've done MAFS. You're not dating, you're not out there, you're not, you just seem so much more shy in terms of dating. And it really, when I worked it out and joined the dots, I thought it's actually very true. I mean, there's been other circumstances that have prevented me feeling, fierce to be out there, dating and stuff. But it does kind of, I don't know, it just sort of is, it knocks the wind out of your sails, that's for sure, for a while. And I've always said that I'm picky and patient, but open to really investing, of myself and my heart in something worthwhile. But I guess that person hasn't really sort of shown up or stood out to me much yet. Yeah, it's I think everyone who was on my season, I can only speak for those that I know, I think each and every one of us were greatly affected by the experience in all sorts of different ways. I think we all had a really different journey, but all of us were, I think, significantly affected in all sorts of different ways. And I think many of us were affected in terms of our relationships. I think that my story of the, feeling like the wind was knocked out of my sails of, with dating, I don't think I'm alone in that. And there's also people that, you meet straight after and understanding there may be some questions and curiosity about an interesting experience like MAFS. I certainly would want to ask somebody some questions about that if roles were reversed. But beyond that, you do sometimes question with people, I think that was the extent of the interest.
Right.
You sort of question that. And so, or people have a view of what your life might be like now, and it's a bit of a come down when you actually let them know that life's pretty normal. It's chops and 3 veg like it was before.
Yeah.
So,
that's it.
What's
the biggest lesson you've learned in your life about love that you wish you could have told yourself, your younger self?
Oh, wow. I think I will always believe in love, and that there is more than one, special person or your person to find in the world. And I will always believe that investing in love is worth it. And I think that through different ages that you are, finding someone that you want to do life with can be a non-cool thing at some points. I know for us, a lot of men, it's like, long-term relationships, I'm my own man, all that sort of stuff. But, I'm like, my response is, all of us think it's cool if you sign on to investing in a home loan or investing in shares. I think that, making a commitment to investing in a relationship is and always will be a cool thing. The benefits of finding someone that you can have as your witness to your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is. And actually, I remember when I was auditioning for MAFS, they were asking me sort of similar questions, and I gave them a quote, and it's one of my favourite quotes about love and about marriage, actually, and it's by Susan, the actress, Susan Sarandon in the movie Shall We Dance? And she says, somebody asks her, why would you want to get married? Why would you want to invest in a relationship? And her response is, well, and I'm not going to get this quote right, but she says, you know, there's a billion people on this planet. So what does any one life mean? What you're saying in marriage is that I will care about you, the good things, and I will care about the bad things. And your life won't go unnoticed because I will notice it. And your life won't go unwitnessed because I will be your witness. And I love that. I just think that's so romantic, but it's also, you know, we're born, we're evolved to want and have a yearning to couple. It's not a girl thing. It's not a hopeless romantic thing. It's a biological, from the caveman times thing that we yearn for. And so I guess to my younger self, you know, I think that having, you know, hope for love in your life and staying extremely busy while you're waiting for that to happen is a really, really good motto.
Brilliant. I love that. On that beautiful note, Gabby, thank you so much for coming on. I'll let you get to the gym. I really...
Oh, God, I have to go now, don't I? Do I really have to go?
It's been really lovely, really insightful, and thank you for opening the doors to the backstage stuff with MAFS. Really appreciated that.
Oh, Carla, you're an absolute gem. Thanks so much for having me.
Bachelorette with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Bachelorette and friends. See you next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.